Grand Rising, guys and goddesses. Grand Rising, Grand Rising. I am back in the gym, keeping up with my self-care routine. And keeping up with y'all. How y'all doing this morning? If you're on here and you can see me, say hey, say good morning. And if you notice, there's a link in the description box for a free discovery call with me. So this morning, I'm going to be talking about the rise pillars of transcendence, how I created this healing process, and what it can do for you. But before I get into that, allow me to introduce myself. I am the one and the only Zaya Samai, the fierce Cameroon King, and I help overgivers and people who struggle to speak their truth and be themselves, craft and implement the ultimate blueprint to total life transformation through herbalism, kinetic science, and cognitive behavior alchemy. So, let's talk about the rise pillars of transcendence. So, if you've paid attention to my logo, to my brand, to my name, the lotus, kinetic lotus, more widely known as the Egyptian lotus, is very symbolic in ancient Kemet and the pyramids and hieroglyphs, so on and so forth. So the kinetic lotus, also known as the Egyptian lotus, it is, good morning, the V-Spot. Thanks for watching and tuning in. So the lotus itself is birthed out of muddy water, dirty water. Its roots literally sprout in dirty water. And when the flower actually makes it to the surface to bloom, it creates these beautiful, voluminous, therapeutic, and medicinal petals. Hi, Libby's Creations, Cremation Creations. Thanks for tuning in. And the ancient Phoenicians used this petal for various medicinal purposes, for meditative purposes, and just overall healing. The kinetic lotus became a symbol of resilience because it literally rises out of the mud and reaches toward the sun once it has come to the surface of the muddy water. And so I chose this symbol to represent my brand and the work that I do, because I literally got it out the mud. I myself submerged into the muddy waters of my subconscious, of generational trauma and systemic oppression, and I waded through those waters and I made sense of the darkness. I connected the pieces and reconnected the puzzle pieces of my truth in that process. I found the missing pieces to myself, my identity, my sense of self-worth in that darkness, in that muddy water. I retrieved those pieces and I made it to the surface, and I put them together to create the goddess you see before you today, Zaya the Lotus. the black goddess who had subdued her ego, healed her heart, now speaks her truth and love and light and healing to those around her. The descendant of Cometians, of those from Benin and Togo, of those who hail from Angola, who were brought here and forced to serve as slaves, who were kings, who were queens, who were artisans, scientists, doulas, musicians, architects, archaeologists, astrologers, astronomers, farmers, and so much more. All of that runs through my veins. And it has come together to form the goddess you see in front of you today. Because I've learned how to tap into all of that greatness that runs through my DNA in times of distress and in times of confusion. So that is the significance of the Kemetic lotus. So why do I call it the Kemetic lotus instead of the Egyptian lotus? I call it the Kemetic lotus because Egyptology is all a colonized institution of this great land, of its history and of its culture. Anything with the name Egypt in it, we know was stolen by Europeans, reappropriated, renamed, and stamped as myth, not fact, not reality, and stamped as white and not black or melanated. And so that's why I use the word Kemetic. That's why I consider myself a Cometian. That's why the name of my company is Kemetic Lotus Rising and not Egyptian Lotus. Because I'm not an Egyptian. The blood of Egyptians does not run through my veins. The blood of Cometians do. Alright. So now that we've established that, the rise pillars of transcendence, I call just that because they represent the process of what the lotus goes through and what I went through in the process of overcoming, transcending, and learning to thrive. And it represents what I can do and guide you through as well. So rise. Rise means the R represents realizing, reevaluating, and recalibrating. So you're realizing the truth, the reality, the truth, not your truth, not their truth, the truth. What is the truth of the matter, right? The undeniable universal truth. Realizing what that is. Reevaluating how you have perceived that truth, analyzed that truth, misinterpreted that truth, and developed a whole set of beliefs, behaviors, habits, and lifestyle around those. That's what reevaluating is about. Recalibrating is then essentially unlearning those limiting beliefs, thoughts, behaviors, and learning new habits to replace all of that, right? So in the R phase, you are conceptualizing and reconceptualizing, re-envisioning what you want your reality to be based on what you are currently unhappy with in your reality at the moment. The I represents insulation. Once you unveil the truth of the matter, it can be hurtful, it can be daunting, and it can be heavy. And oftentimes, inevitably, you will unmask wounds that you have not dealt with. And so in this phase, you are insulating those wounds, right? Instead of, you're basically ripping the scab off of what you have allowed to fester and heal improperly. And now you're doing the work of allowing it to heal properly but in the context of nurturing, in the context of proper coping skills, in the context of a properly vetted and qualified support system, and in the context of a self-care regimen and routine that we will plan together, right? And so in this phase, once you have realized all of these things, I work with you to create this plan. The S is about speaking your truth. Speaking your truth, speaking the truth, and exercising your throat chakra. Unblocking it, releasing, and rebalancing that space, right? Because as you are realizing, reevaluating, and calibrating, that starts at the root. You work your way through your sacral, your solar plexus. Once you get to the point to where you are speaking your truth, you have now reached the area where your solar plexus and your heart chakra meet, because it takes the balancing of all of those energies for the words and the truth that comes out of that space to be immaculate, which is the first law of the 4 agreements. So that's speaking your truth. And so in this phase, you develop scripts internally and externally for situations where internally you have taken on the negative voices of people in your past who have said discouraging things, hurtful things, degrading things to you. And you're taking control of that voice, and you're giving that voice a new set of words, a new script, a new set of beliefs to speak it to yourself on a daily basis through affirmations. When you go out into the world and you begin to go into spaces where your truth has been suppressed, your voice has been suppressed. People talk over you, people ignore you, people manipulate your words and gaslight you. You now have a script you have developed to challenge that and deflect that energy. Now you're into spiritual warfare because you are fighting the negative frequencies seeking to take over you, negative and malicious entities seeking to take over you, your mind and your behavior. And you are now using the power of your aura, your electromagnetic frequency, your magic, your melanin. You are pushing it outward to protect you and to establish who you truly are, what your birthright is, how you will move through the world, and what is required in order to interact with you. That's the stage of speaking your truth. Elevating is simply about unlearning, learning, and relearning. These are the actions that you take behind the words that you speak, behind the affirmations that you develop, behind the internal script that you tell yourself, behind the words that you speak immaculately when you are out in the world. What actions are you taking to bring the faith of what you desire to life, to be in alignment with what it is you desire to experience and have in this lifetime? What does your self-care regimen look like? What does your integrity look like when you're put into challenging situations and compromising situations that are uncomfortable and cause for you to make uncomfortable decisions? What will you do? Will you fall back into your old habits and behaviors, or will you find the balance and the courage to do what your intuition and your gut and your spirit tells you is right. That's the hard part, because we live in a society that's very political, socially political, economically political, racially political, political when it comes to gender, everything political these days, right? So it's always a mind game. And if you say a certain thing or do a certain thing, people are very crafty at manipulating that into something else. And so you have to become aware of this, aware of what the truth is, and decide for yourself what is the best action in integrity and honor, and most importantly, self-preservation. So that's what it means to elevate. Elevating means unlearning toxic habits, ways of thinking, and behaviors that have come along with it, and replacing them with new ones. It means changing your diet to one more suitable for you. It means incorporating movement, daily movement, into your schedule so that you are releasing the toxins of trauma from your body. These toxins have built up and developed a code in your DNA. And the only way that you're going to reset that code, do a factory reset on your body, is if you detox and then begin to do things on a daily basis. Through physical experience, your body develops a code. Through muscle memory, your body develops a code. Through your speech, the way you speak, the way you, everything that you do on a daily basis, how you show up in times of stress, how you show up in spaces of peace and love, and socializing and connecting and all of that. When it's time to work and set a goal and get things done, all of that is encoded in your DNA, and you have the power to change that. So that's what elevating is about. It's about the daily action that you take to reverse what you had no control over, right? And so that's how I develop. So that is the process of the rise, pillars of transcendence, right? And when you begin to take this journey with me, I'll take you through the realize, reevaluate, weight, and recalibration process with the signature assessment called the metaphysical. You take this assessment, it will assess your emotional intelligence. It will assess your astrological makeup, your human design. It will assess your strengths. It will assess how much you know about your heritage. And then we'll take all of that into your intake, your metaphysical intake session. Then we'll begin to develop a plan for you, a self-care plan, a plan to cope with the triggers you have developed over time from trauma, a plan of who will be your support system as you begin to elevate, change your thoughts, your behavior, and your habits, right? Because you're going to need some accountability partners. You're going to need some cheerleaders. You're going to need some nurturers. You're going to need all these things that you didn't have when you experienced the trauma the first time, and so that you can reverse this thing now. So we're going to create a plan for that. Then we're going to set some goals. You're going to choose the goals, right? You're going to lay out all your goals. We're going to choose one, and we're going to develop a plan around that, right? And last but not least, we're going to develop a manifesto, a credo for who you are, so that you never forget, so that as you move forward and you begin to experience resistance in the world around you as you attempt to change, you have your identity, your self-awareness, your credo, your manifesto deeply ingrained within you, so as not to be deterred. And then we're going to put it all in this beautiful little journal with a built-in planner, built-in homework exercises that'll be printed, bounded, sent to your door. And we're going to take this journey together, and we're going to walk it out. And as you choose, whatever goal you choose to start working toward in our time together, we're going to work toward that as we work through all the pieces that typically get in our way when we try to make a change, because we don't have a plan and we don't have support. You will now have all of that with me as we begin to exercise the rise pillars of transcendence to cultivate the life you've always wanted to experience, and to help you seize your destiny with audacity and confidence. So how did I come up with this process? I came up with this process out of a sheer need to survive and a determination to thrive. The rough draft of what I've just explained to you came to me at the age of 13, and it was just something that I kind of snapped into out of a need to survive, because I had just attempted suicide for the last time, and I was not successful, and I had no control over the situation I was getting ready to go back into, and I needed to find peace. I needed to find my center. I needed an anchor to be able to go through and grow through what I could not control, because I was not in a position to change my circumstances, because I was a minor, a child. I had no income. I had no alternative place to live. I had people in the schools and in the church who saw my greatness and who worked with me and encouraged me and helped to cultivate some resilience. But my home was a battlefield, and I had to put on my armor. And so when I woke up that morning and I asked God, why would you let me live just to go through these things? So this is the message that came to me. Well, you meant to heal families, black families in particular. You're going to show mothers how to be mothers, sisters how to be sisters, fathers how to be fathers, brothers, cousins, aunties, grandmas, uncles, so on and so forth, because there's a need. The village has been shattered into pieces, and I've called you to be one of my soldiers to make this happen. Now, I didn't come through that beautifully articulated, but the message of you will heal black families did. And so once I received that message, then the next question I asked God was, well, how am I going to make it through this? Because I can't endure this no more. And in that moment, the energy within me and the inner God within me spoke to the great divine and said, ooh, I'm getting tired. He said, you cannot control other people's actions. You can simply control the way you respond. You do not have to believe the words, the hurtful words that are coming out of their mouths. You do not have to accept that as your truth. You do not have to believe those things about yourself. You do not have to believe that that is what you deserve. You can choose to reject that. Endure was the last thing. You will have to endure so that you can push forward and get out of here. My meal ticket out of trauma and dysfunction was college. And so I just kept my head down. I went to school every day. I got a job, got on the cheerleading squad, found a boyfriend, which ended up being toxic as well. But that conversation I had with myself allowed me to deal with my trauma in a way that was no longer self-harming, right? I wasn't trying to kill myself anymore. So I developed some survival techniques that left scars on me and developed wounds that, I'm still dealing with to this day. But it was the bones and the framework for the rise pillars of transcendence that I practice on a daily basis and at each level of evolution. As an adult, the rise pillars of transcendence gained their wings and their full shape as I experienced my sadness return with my job. In 1 year, I experienced 2 different situations of sexual harassment, racism, just all around betrayal. And it sent me into a deep depression. My house was a mess. I was constantly in fight or flight mode, freezing, not being able to articulate myself. My family, my dad actually said some hurtful things to me at that time. Told me he was considering getting a DNA test at the ripe age of 30. My mama was acting crazy. My sister turned on me after being so supportive of her for many years, and she began to go through her awakening. She said some real hurtful things about me, told me I was stuck, told me basically like it was like everything was wrong with me when I was the one doing the work. And at that time, I let it get to me, let those things get to me, and I internalized because it caught me off guard. And I hadn't been really practicing like that because I was, that was a technique that I developed out of survival mode. But I found myself again in a situation where I was considering suicide. And I had to take off some days and lay up and do the work and begin to ask myself the hard questions. Why do I feel this way? Why do these things hurt me so bad? Why would these people do these things to me and say these things to me? And I began to receive my messages, right? And then I began to evaluate how all of these situations have come together to hurt me. And I began to think about how in the world did I end up in a space where I allowed these things to happen, and it took me back to my childhood and what I had been through and how different traumatic experiences contributed to the lack of defense and sense of self-worth that I had, right? I had no boundaries or anything, and I had to come to grips with that in that moment, right? And then I began to ask myself, okay, so if this is the case, if what they're saying is not the truth, then what is the truth? What is my truth? And I began to speak that truth. I wrote it down. I wrote down everything that hurt me, everything that had me feeling away. On one side of the sheet of paper, and on the other side, I wrote an affirmation that was my truth, that was my destiny, that was my reality, that embodied all the beautiful great things about myself. I ripped that paper in half, I put them affirmations up on the wall, and I burnt all the bullshit. Then I went into a meditation, and I took myself back to those moments of trauma. And instead of being the victim, I saw the victimhood that I had experienced. But now my ego knew better. And my ego went in to fight on my behalf. My ego went in to empathize with my abusers. And I was able to reshape that reality. And I was able to speak to my inner child and say, you weren't in control at that time. Right? You were forced to endure at that time. And the ways that you chose to survive in order to make it out of it deserve no condemnation. They worked then, but they don't work now. It's time to change that. And that's what I did. And so that's how I developed the Rise Pillars of Transcendence. And that is the process I go through each time my ancestors and spirit guides take me through a new level of initiation and a new level of elevation and evolution. And that's the journey that you will take with me when you book that call and get you started. So I wanted to come on here and share that with you today, because the journey is not easy, but it most certainly is beautiful. And if we're gonna cry about anything, it should be to keep going, and not to give up or to become complacent and accepting of what is less than what we deserve. Once again, I am Zaya the Lotus, Dr. Shantasia Shorter, and I help overgivers who struggle to speak their truth and be themselves, craft and implement the ultimate blueprint to total life transformation through herbalism, cognitive behavioral alchemy, and kinetic science. I love you to life. I'm sorry, I got interrupted. I will also teach you how to seize your destiny with audacity and confidence. I love you to life, and I look forward to taking this journey with you. Peace.